Welcome to Rotterdam Roof Topics. My name is Leon van Geest and today I am on a very special roof of the Erasmus Medical Center, 3,000 square meters of a beautiful green rooftop with 38 fruit trees. On this beautiful day I speak with Liesbeth van Heel. She's not an architect, she's not a project developer, but I think without her this beautiful orchard, this green oasis would not have been here.
Welcome. This is the roof garden of Erasmus MC, the University Medical Center in the heart of Rotterdam.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad to be here on this beautiful rooftop.
It's a good day for it.
It's a good day for it, a warm day. I always start off with one question, and that is, do you have an early rooftop memory?
Ooh, it's a difficult one because roofs used not to be things that you were climbing onto or something. I was thinking about the house that my father built many years ago. It would have been his birthday today, so
okay.
that's probably why I
have to remember
take the
that.
liberty to think of that A house
Yeah.
that he built in 1965. So that didn't really allow much climbing, but well, maybe walking over this building was one of the first rooftops. Well, of course I've been on the rooftop of the Sophia Children's
also,
Hospital,
yeah.
because we introduced Sedum there in 2009.
So for you, the whole rooftop idea and being on rooftops is a quite new experience idea.
Yes.
And you've been working on the whole transformation of this new medical center for over 20 years.
True.
And when did that idea of a rooftop for rooftop usage came about? When in the process?
Well, actually quite early. One of the ambitions we had was to, knowing that we would be in an inner city location, quite densely built upon, but with quality of the green parks around us, we wanted to bring that quality into the building.
Because there's
the
a
atria,
really big park, for the people who don't know it,
yeah,
just outside the hospital.
Yeah, on two sides.
Yeah, on two sides, yeah.
And then and you could have greenery in atria, but because greenery in a hospital is always a bit tricky with infection reasons and so on. But then our landscape architect, Jurlink en Geluk, they made a conceptual drawing of a patient looking out through his window in an inpatient room through an orchard to the skyline of Rotterdam. And I think that really sold us to that idea, that you could do something as daring as that.
And it's actually what we see now when we look that way.
Yes, we've just been counting the walnuts and the quince pears and so on.
Because there are 38 trees up here,
yeah,
and they're all fruit trees.
Yeah, they're wild fruit, so we don't have to cultivate them, but they grow in the wild. Yeah, and they are standing, you might imagine, to give them room to grow on top of the pillars.
Okay, yeah.
And that to have that weight of the
trees and
the trees and
soil.
The soil, yeah.
And that was possible because it's a totally new building. So with the construction, and you could see that was done properly.
It's been an integrated part of the design.
Yeah.
Because you need the construction engineers to allow for the weight, and you have to have the technical engineers, because actually we are sitting on top of a technical floor.
That's one big technical floor that we're on.
One big technical floor. So it has some certain outlets, and you hear some of the noises that come from below. But also beneath that are the operating theaters.
Okay.
So you're very in a high-tech environment. You have this luxurious outdoor space.
And so when the first idea came about of that vision of looking through an orchard, not everybody was game. I can imagine.
No, because it's of course costly, and it's not part of Austern and sober in a building quality.
And also the whole clinical environment, which is so important.
Well, I think they were, because we've all been, well, not all, but many people are aware that Roger Ulrich many years ago published in Science about the view from a room and the effect on the healing process. So that was one of the things that we try to encompass in the whole concept of the building, to make it a healing environment and reduce stress. And having an outdoor view, greenery is reducing stress. Yeah. Let's not argue about that. All the other things or for instance, as it's used now by staff members, just to relax and recuperate from all the work stress they encompass on the buildings.
The rooftop is being used, so we have to show that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's so it was an early idea, and I thought it was a quality that would benefit everyone, rather than being something exclusively for children or for cancer patients.
And how hard was it to get people on board of that idea?
Well, I think the design team quite liked the challenge.
Yeah.
And then at an early stage, we made the move to say, well, let's involve the foundation, so the people that attract money for research, but also for
because it was something that wasn't in the original budget, of course.
No. Yeah. But we said, let's set this aside, because we think that we'll get some sponsoring for this.
Funding on other means than the original budget.
Yeah. And of course you have to do the outlay, and the design costs come for the hospital, but we've been able to collect that money with the help of the city council and the businesses and the construction firm and
also
everybody
the people of Rotterdam.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was you could have a little shrub, or you could adopt a tree.
So and all the 38 trees have their own sponsor.
Yes. And at first they had a lid attached to say who had sponsored it. But I pride myself that 2 square meters of this roof I contributed.
And how many square meters is it? 3,000?
3,400.
400, even more.
Yeah.
On the 8th floor of a hospital.
32 meters above ground.
Could the architect show you an example of well, it's done here before, or it's been there, or were you totally in the whole pioneering
Well, we
phase?
have seen an example of a roof garden in a hospital in the US, United States. I think it was in Boston, but not of this size.
Yeah.
And I think it comes with the with the location mostly.
Yeah.
Because a lot of hospitals have outdoor greenery much closer to the ground, and if you look at hospitals built in Denmark or so on, it's 4 floors and
so it's very easy to connect with nature, and when you look outside you see nature.
Yeah, and this is not a green field as they call that, but this is brownfield.
Yeah.
There was a building here.
Yeah.
It had to be demolished and then something new brought in.
So that's a whole different circumstances, and so it was the more necessary to make a solution like this.
Well, it was the opportunity to have a garden shielded from the southwesterly wind.
Yeah.
That is quite an important factor in the Netherlands,
Yes.
so close to the sea. To give the trees some reason to stay with us.
Yeah. And also the people to be here and not get blown away by the wind.
Absolutely.
And the whole Ulrich statement that green is a factor in a healing environment, maybe it's not, you cannot easily prove it in a very hard number-wise way, but
scientific experiment. Yeah.
But it's something that people are
relate
more
to.
aware of.
I think people relate to it. I mean, if you look at the COVID crisis that's just been happening, everybody was locked down in their houses, and what did we want to do? Go outside, walk in the park,
see nature,
connect to nature, and well, just from personal experience, when I was a patient, not in this hospital but somewhere else, and I had to recuperate after an operation, I went to my parents' house and they had a pond and trees, and I would sit outside, and that calming effect does something with you.
Yeah. So, and also if it's not maybe proven, you at least have the possibility to do it when you feel like it, when you're here. Because it's also, I think it's amazing that you can walk with all help things you need when you're a patient, and even you can go with your bed outside. So that's quite remarkable, I would say.
Well, that's of course then the requirements that you have to set to the designers, that you want it, if it has to be accessible, then it has to be safe. Yeah. So there's cameras and there's Wi-Fi, so that if the patient is here on his own and he has his mobile alarm, that we can locate him.
Yeah.
And it has to be safe in the sense that you won't jump and all that. So it isn't easy to do it.
Yeah.
And then it has to be done in a proper way so that it doesn't leak below floors and the technical installations, because then the hospital would come to a halt and you can't have that.
Yeah. And also the fact it's a public area, so if you really want to, you can find it and go. Was there a lot of fear that a lot of people from Rotterdam would come up and it couldn't be used anymore by patients, or?
Well, it is semi-public.
Yeah.
And one is not accessible. It's just for staff, because it doesn't have a second access.
Yeah.
I do know that groups tour here.
Yeah.
But you have to know it.
Yeah.
And yes, I've always a bit tension about this being a public building and everybody coming in, but being confronted with the patients that are very vulnerable in their frailty or in the way they look, and it should be their place as well.
It should be a safe, private place in that way.
So if there's group, we always insist that it's small groups, and that we know about it, and that we can inform the people that the ward manager that's on this floor, so he knows that people will turn up in groups.
What would you say was the biggest challenge? Because you had the idea, the plan was there, but was the money the biggest challenge, or were the people the biggest challenge? Were the technical?
Probably the technical things. I wasn't that involved in that, but I know that we've had quite a few versions of the design to know what kind of furniture and how that would fit with the various outlets of the technical floor. So, but as it turned out, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, well, so that's no. It would be. I would be surprised that you weren't happy with a beautiful garden like this.
It's 2 years and 2.5 years now, nearly 3, that the trees came on top, and that's, I think, was another challenge, that we tried to generate money for this project, but on the other hand, you couldn't show for it. You couldn't visit. It was just a month prior to the handover of the building that the trees were lifted up.
Yeah. So, and it all came together. And now the trees, they give fruit, and people can get the fruit. And do they actually?
Well, I know that the first year we had a lot of quench pears.
Yeah.
And it just in the magazine of Volkskrant on a Saturday, it had a recipe with it, and that featured on our new Erasmus MC
website.
Chat,
So everybody came here to get their pears. Really nice.
But normally, I'm not really sure what happens. I mean, I've myself collected twice a walnut, and I treasure them. Because it symbolized for me the small thing and the seed with which something starts to grow to blossom into something beautiful.
And it took almost 20 years, but it blossomed beautifully. And also, I've heard that a very remarkable species was found here. So nature did find its way also to this 8th floor.
Yeah, we don't know where it came from, and we can't ask it because it was collected after it died.
Okay.
But it was a unique species, and a student determined it, and it's called Erasmus and it's a wasp,
Yeah.
a kind of wasp. And we don't know if there are more, but
it was never seen in Holland.
It was never seen in Holland. No.
So it was a rooftop wasp, in a way.
Well, you do see that there's wasps around, and
Yeah.
and we have beehives on the Sophia Children's Hospital. So the first honey has been made from that beehives.
And how many square meters is that?
Oh, I think 1,500 or something.
Okay.
But that's sedum.
That's a light green roof, but it was also already 10 years earlier than this roof. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and it was just when, when the city became much more aware of the roofs. I'm not sure what your first roof experience was. Whether that goes back.
It goes back to childhood and climbing on rooftops. Yeah.
Okay. Right. But that was another kind of coincidental meeting of people, of the alderman and one of the architects, and he said, well, if you're building up that building, couldn't you make it a green roof? And we said, well, why should we, or what's in it for us? And then we made it with 3 parties an agreement to invest in that
green roof.
And of course, now everybody likes the view. And if you're working in that tower, and you have a beautiful green view.
So it always starts with people with ideas and people pushing through, and it ends with people using it.
Yeah. And then it's the cherry on the icing of the cake.
Yeah. So
it's perceived as that because well, it does add something, but it's not really tangible what it adds for everything that's happening here, which is education and patient care and research.
Yeah.
And hard biomedical science.
Science. But within that science we still need the biodiversity of nature.
Yes, and we need places to restore our energies. And I think that's probably a more convincing argument still, that if you see that people, because there's another study, and it was actually Roger Ulrich was involved as well, with burnout rates in ICU nurses that had been taking their breaks outside on a roof, on a green roof, that they were far lower than if they didn't have that respite area.
Okay, yeah.
So it's taking care of your people also.
Yeah. What I like very much is that you're not an architect, you're not a project developer, you don't have a lot of money, not that I know of, and still I think you're one of the driving forces of this rooftop to a dream came true. Would you describe your position in the whole process? What did you do? What were your qualities that you could bring into this process as a person to make it happen?
Well, I think I had the luck that I was positioned very close to all the decision making, and I was in charge of communication, and I headed the team quality assuring the design.
Yeah.
But we also, I also went on trips and saw other projects and talked about that and went to conferences and learned a lot. And that gave me the ear of some people, and also something, well, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I can't cure people, but I can, and that was my mission with this building, to make it a better place for all the people that need to be here.
Yeah.
And this is one of the elements.
Oh, thank you for that, for doing that effort, and that we have this great garden here in Rotterdam to use for many years to come. And thank you for this nice conversation.
Okay, you're welcome.